Brilliant, thank you. So welcome all to Recruitment Entrepreneur's monthly webinar. Today we are tackling the topic of talent attraction for recruitment businesses. We've got a short presentation for you all, and I've already received some questions actually ahead of this. So we'll tackle that at the end of the presentation, and it will leave some time for further questions from our guests. So please do store those questions as they come up, particularly from what you see from today's short presentation, and we can tackle some more at the end in a roughly 30 minutes time. So just to introduce myself, I'm Alex Niarchos. I'm the Investment Director for Recruitment Entrepreneur. I'm responsible for identifying and responding to requests for investment in startup or scaled recruitment businesses. I've worked in recruitment coming close to 20 years, which you might be able to tell from the dyed hair to black, but marketing and working across 5 different verticals and in businesses from startup to nationwide operations. So hopefully I can share some of my war stories today from difficult to find talent, which I've seen in many of the markets I've worked in. So let's just kick on. Whilst many work very hard to ascertain the needs and benefits of joining organisations, that as recruitment businesses we service, talent attraction still remains the single hardest challenge to support scale for our own businesses. And to give you an idea of some of the challenges of that, there are 42,000 active recruitment businesses in the UK, and less than 28% of those achieve headcounts of +10. So whilst not all strive for scale, it still underpins that challenge that business owners face to find and attract their own future staff. Let's have a quick look at the market. I mean, in 2021, it's been obviously coming off the back of a pandemic year. Most specialist markets through Q1 have bounced back. Job flow and interview rates are certainly improving. And if you look at some of the markets like logistics, transport, construction, they're all at levels higher than pre-pandemic levels. Professional white collars return to growth at full swing, but still positive. And graduate recruitment is still suffering, with postgraduate employment figures still remaining really high, and probably largely driven by the remote onboarding process, and I guess the lean towards taking on experienced staff. Despite this, IT specialisms, life sciences, even hospitality have kicked off in Q1 and have delivered healthy starts for recruitment businesses. So, you know, you've gone from a famine in job environment in a lot of cases to feast, and what happens there is strong consultants now less likely to move in the market, and probably will be harder as we move through Q1. So the war for talent is back on, and it swings very quickly to that. In H2, we probably will see it a lot tougher. Candidate markets will become a candidate-driven market for recruiters. And if you look at actually some CIPD stats, 67% of recruitment businesses this year are looking to hire for their own growth. So the war and the attraction talent is only going to get stronger and harder. So today we're going to look at some fundamentals needed to be in place to help you remain hopefully at the top of the list of why and how you can attract future talent. And lucky for me today, I'm joined today by 2 founders of businesses that sit within Recruitment Entrepreneur portfolio, and also our very own marketing expert, Danielle Butterfield. So here to share their stories and tips on what works and enabling their businesses to grow in this ever increasing competitive market. So welcome to the panel.
Hi guys.
Thanks, Alex.
Good stuff. Do you want to give just a very brief intro to yourselves? Andy, do you want to kick us off in the order of the slide?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I am not the king of hiring talent, everybody. I'm just bringing 7 years of mistakes to the table on what I've learned from those mistakes and what I've done well. So just bear that in mind, okay? So I founded Hanami International around 7 years ago, thanks to RE's investment. We've grown to around 14 heads at our peak. We're quite a niche business. We place auditors and tax and corporate finance candidates into, well, multinationals and accounting firms globally. So we've placed 55 different nationalities into 94 cities in 40 countries worldwide. We've been on 50 plus international client visits between us, ranging from San Fran in the west to Sydney in the east. Yeah, and that's us.
Well, there's a sell in itself to come and join you, Andy. Thanks for the intro. Sarah?
Yeah, so we're based in Ireland, and we are probably market experts known in insurance and pensions. We're also operating within accounting, compliance as well. So very much financial services, and we are up and down nationwide in Ireland. And, you know, Ireland is just so tiny compared to the UK. So when we're trading the whole country of Ireland, it's probably equivalent to covering maybe all of the south of England. We've recently just opened up in the UK, in Liverpool. We have one of our consultants is actually creating a branch in Liverpool for us. So very much on the scale, kind of trajectory now, wanting to grow the business. I'd say we probably cover maybe 60-70% of the insurance market within Ireland. So, it's a case for us to diversify now and grow the brand into other areas that are growing and try to grow with the markets as well.
Great stuff, yeah. And I know we'll hear more from both of you there. So yeah, thank you. Looking forward to that. And Danielle, last but not least.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. So I am the Group Marketing Manager at Recruitment Entrepreneur. So I look after all of the companies within our portfolio. One of the main focuses of my role is talent attraction for the group. So later on in this webinar, I'll be sharing with you some of my tips and tricks, what you should include in your job adverts and what you should be posting on social media.
Superb. Looking forward to that as well. Thank you. Right, well, let's dive into then the fundamentals of what you should have in place to enable you as a business owner to give you the market advantages, or as obviously how we see that. So whether a small business making your first hire or at scale, we've got 6 key headline focus areas that will support you to attract and retain future talent, which is just as important. Kicking off, I guess, with one thing that's often ignored: competitor analysis. So key facts about your competition across all these key elements that you see will enable you to stand out, be different, and enable you to tap into the motivators or missing factors in current recruiters that are working within them. So knowing, for example, commission structures, their training and onboarding processes, do they develop their staff? What hierarchy or structures do they have in place for those that want more than just to be a recruiter? What is their journey or vision, and how does that compare to yours? These are just, I guess, some of the sample of questions that you should get in an interview. And if you don't, just to have a prepared, much stronger answer to obviously your competitors, which will benefit the future hire to move and then join your organization. So I guess the key point is put yourself in the shoes of that recruiter. Why would you join your own business, and what's in it for them? And is that message really clear, and is that underpinned within the business? And also what helps with that is employee value proposition, or EVP as it's known. I mean, what does it actually mean? It's the value of a company that offers to employees in return for the value they bring to the organization. So it's the benefits and rewards offered to these employees in return for their skills and capabilities that they bring to your business. And elements that make that up: work-life balance, stability, location, how will I be managed, and what is the culture of your business that you're creating and joining? And ensuring you have an EVP within your business will help you, not only to attract the talent, but also get them on board through the interview process. Sarah, I know that, and I welcome your thoughts here. I know you dedicate a great deal of time to brand within your business and the individuals within it. Do you want to share some thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. So I think for us, working in a tight market where you have, I guess, less options on talent, like in Ireland, the recruitment industry, people are actually leaving it, and they're drawn to the bright lights of going on to an in-house role. And those that are skilled and experienced within recruitment tend to be really looked after, just like what we do with our guys. So the competition to actually hire is extremely tough. So what we do is we actually focus on building our consultants and creating a brand around them, so that there's a sense of independence, and there's a sense that they have, success through their own merit, to their own brand, putting themselves out online. And part of what we offer when somebody is coming into 360 is, do you have an appetite to be known in the market? Do you have an appetite to be known as the person to go to? And we work with consultants individually and make that part of their development and their offering as to creating a brand for them. And especially the way the world is now, that it's an online basis. So it's doing, articles, any videos that they put out, and putting out information pieces to clients, and offering that type of, I suppose, tailored approach to making them into the consultant that they want to be, which our competitors are not necessarily doing that. So giving them a platform to have a voice and be somebody that's making noise and has an opinion in the market. So we find that with our consultants, but also we do that it helps our brand, and it helps us push our brand out there, and that the conversations we're having are not cold, because we're 4 people, soon to be 5. We don't make the same noise as a huge brand with 30 or 40 people or more. So being creative with your activity online and empowering consultants to make their own activity is definitely, we find, is attractive when people are coming on board, because they can be independent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I guess summary of that is you're building a following that can ever grow as your business grows. It will certainly add value. Thank you for sharing that. Well, let's look at the experience, and I guess this is something that is often debated prior to even hiring. But what are you looking for? And it's often governed, and the decision of that, I should say, is governed by your current state of play. So, an example, particularly at the moment, high job flow and demand from client leads to the need for experience immediately. But can you plan ahead and grow your own experience? Do you have the time to support and train an individual, which are key areas, particularly in this environment where some of that might be remote? Who will be responsible for that training? And as we ever know, turnover in recruitment still occurs, and often at high levels. So I guess a sink or swim environment, which is coupled with potentially a remote now onboarding process, makes this task harder, but not impossible. So answers to those questions are key, but heading for experience can also alleviate this challenge. But an experienced hire also still comes with bad habits or a different expectation of support. So no support should be no option, i.e. there must be support irrespective of what type of hire you're looking for. Everyone needs nurturing and support from a manager that can lead and inspire. And the success or failure to find this talent and retain it sits with those responsible for driving these actions, not the new hire. So the key is to be really clear about that and also have the plans behind it to enable that onboarding process and attraction process to really work for you. Andy, I know you've had some further detail on this later, but what's your experience of recruiting at different experience levels?
I mean, I think you definitely save time by hiring graduates in the hiring process, because it's just easier and quicker to do. But then you need to be prepared to invest that time in a proper training and onboarding sort of program. And if you don't have that and you think you can just do it at the desk, I think you'll struggle, or we certainly struggled. Or we made the mistake of thinking, well, if we're going to get one grad in, we might as well get 4 and train them all up at the same time. Right. And you've really got to have enough bread on the table to feed everyone. And I just find with the graduates, many of them just don't quite know what they want and want to do. Or we also made a mistake of hiring, because we recruit into multiple sort of geographies. We loved language speakers. So we hired Germans, French, etc., Swiss, but they all go home. So even if you've got them for a year and a half, that's not a long time for you, but it's quite a long time for them. So we'd lose a lot of people who were going back home. And I think now, in this day and age of homework, and I wouldn't hire a graduate right now. I just don't think we have the sort of bandwidth to be nurturing them and looking after them sort of with those touch points from home. Yeah. So that's what I think anyway.
Thank you. Sarah, we spoke recently about learning from previous hires made. What's been your experience in this, and any top tips around that?
Always trust your instinct. That's probably the biggest, like, I guess mistakes that we've learned is rushing into a hire. So, not necessarily getting to know the skills of the person thoroughly enough. Maybe not asking uncomfortable questions, keeping it, we probably kept it a bit too friendly because maybe they've been known to us, because Ireland is so small. So, it's nearly, you probably related to them in some way. It's that small, but it's sometimes it can be overly friendly in Ireland, and you can miss out on difficult and uncomfortable questions to really understand whether somebody's going to, do the role properly. But I think learning from our mistakes, definitely trust your instincts. We've had a couple of circumstances where their skill set's not entirely right, but we felt, okay, we can develop them, we can train them, we can bring them. But actually the time and the manpower that goes into that, and exactly what Andy said, you have to have the business there to support somebody. And I can't stress more, if somebody is right for you, that there's, if you're not 90% sure that they're the right fit, that's actually, I'd probably walk away, because long term, it's always as you thought.
Could I just add to that though?
Sure.
I've been 90% sure, therefore unsure, but references can help you get that person to 100%. Like, I genuinely have thought someone was was average, but I liked them. And because he was immediately available, I was able to get references. And I spoke to 3 previous recruitment owners who worked with this guy, who all said he was great, and all gave me advice on getting the best out of him, etc. And that got me over the line. And I think we do cut corners when we, as recruiters, you'd think we'd be the best hirers in the world, but I think we're probably the worst, when we're hiring into our own businesses. So, and look, obviously, if someone's spent 4 years at Michael Page and is still there, they're not going to give you their boss as a reference when you haven't offered them a job, but they're bound to have, or they should have, a load of mates who've moved on. And if someone hasn't or can't give you a list of names or clients or candidates, there's probably your answer, not to move forward. So don't just walk away if you're 90% sure, but if you can get references, it might make the difference, or indeed help you, reinforce your decision not to hire.
Yeah.
That's a great point, Andy. In fact, that was one of the questions we got in prior to the webinar starting, is how do you check on someone's experience once you're happy at interview stage? So just to elaborate on that, Andy, what would you deem as a reference? Who would you call?
Well, their old boss, ideally, if they're in a current role, you can't call their current boss, but they're bound to have colleagues or even mates. If you're close friends with someone on the desk next to you, you're probably telling them that you're looking elsewhere. So that mate should be able to vouch for you in some way. And I've got quite a specific form. It's only short because it's not nice calling competitors all the time, and they're not always amenable to be called. But I really just want to know, look, how to get the best out of them. Any advice? Because even though their billings, etc., might stack up, it's really more, what are the challenges with this person, if any? And people love giving advice. I just like asking for their advice on getting the best out of them. That tends to be work. And obviously as close and as high level as possible, ideally.
Yeah. And I think going back to actually, Sarah, point you made about brand and people, wanting to make sure they're putting themselves out there to be this expert, and actually are they willing to do it? People often forget, and I still check social media profiles. You can learn a lot from somebody's previous posts in their previous roles, how active they are on LinkedIn, but also, everyone generally's got a Facebook account, or maybe start the elderly camp, like the one I sit in, and there are other forums, but it's often an area that will be checked or should be checked. Great points. Okay, well, let's move on from that then. I mean, a new entry to the list, I guess, is of what the future talent is looking for is flexibility. And business owners have had to adapt and experience the differences of running a business remotely, as we know, over the last 12 months. So flexibility, albeit something on the list for the future talent, has now spanned to the working from home question. So time in the office is important, but for what reason? Do you have an answer to that? What is the need for you as an employee versus the need for the employee who's in that office? Productivity is the key measure, not the hours in the day. And is that a question you need to really look at? And however, how do you generate a culture of a business if everyone is remote? So there's some really big challenges there, but not to be overcome. So I think, how do you provide the key factor of learning and development also in that environment? And as a manager or owner, and a skill set of remote management is very different to managing people in person, which I'm sure, everyone's had a test on that in the last few months. It can be done, and already we're seeing movement in the market of talent that's current employees rethinking this. So, there must be in the office attitude to ensuring business success is being tested, because people are now looking to move. For example, in businesses that are not centered in major cities, can use this to the advantage and attract talent that not long ago, recruiters woke up every morning and commuted away from those local businesses into major cities. So, is that something that also now is an added advantage, maybe even to yourself, Sarah, about obviously being in a more remote environment? And again, trust is something we also see, and I very much see on as a key pillar of an organization. But how do you really put this to the test with an offer that attracts talent that you 12 months ago maybe would not, have the option to hire? So, remote working flexibility is a key factor there, and also part of this EVP. Sarah, Andy, any thoughts on that and how that might have changed your views this year?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we're definitely going to face the challenge of maintaining culture when we're all in different houses, miles apart, yeah? But I think my view on it is, you know, society has forced us all to get on a train, on a packed train, and cram into London or wherever every day for however many decades, right? And then society has now forced us to work from home because of the virus. And I think we've got an opportunity now to finally have a choice. And I think if you take that choice away from people, I think you're gonna hurt some of your staff members. You know, we can't force people to work from home for a year, get them all billing, and then tell them, in my opinion anyway, and then tell them, right, now you've got to come into the office. So we are definitely going to give people the choice. I've got consultants who want to come in, and I've got consultants who don't want to come in. The only rule I have said is, if you say you're going in, then go in. You know, I don't want to travel all the way into London because 4 people are going in and we're going to work together, and then get there and 3 of them decide they're going to work from home instead, because I could have just stayed at home. And I have found also, on the days where I have decided by choice to go in, the commute is just not so bad because it's my choice to sit on that train. And obviously it's empty and whatever. I think we really need to just give people choice, in my opinion, and therefore they'll repay that trust, I think. Yeah. You know, even just, this is separate. I interviewed a candidate this morning, an auditor, and one of the reasons he's looking is because his business, a Scottish business, is making them all come into the office. But there's still a huge amount of COVID restrictions in place. So he's not allowed to meet his colleagues in a meeting room. He's still got to meet them over Teams at his desk. Now that person now is looking to leave. And there's going to be recruiters who feel exactly the same.
Already are. Agreed. Yeah. Sarah, any additional thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it's definitely about communication and trust. You know, we're very much going to have a split week where, you know, there's a couple of days in the office, the rest of the week at home, but we're going to be in the office on the same days. So we're looking at starting the week together, let's say a Monday and a Tuesday, and then the rest of the week is optional. So you can continue, you can work at home Wednesday, Thursday, Friday if you want, because like we're very lucky that we get on so well. And part of what we enjoy is actually being around each other. And there's just certain aspects of a team environment, you know, bouncing ideas off, especially for new people, understanding, you know, your manager or your employee's personality, and getting to know them kind of more than, you know, over Zoom. That happens in person. So there's merit in being in the office. But there's also work, you know, people are happier having a split week. But I think where people are being called into the office, I think it's down to the management, and it's down to the level of trust, responsibility. It's down to the how the management style. So every company is different. But I do think in order to attract the right recruiters are entrepreneurial by skill set, you know, they're independent and they're confident, you know, the recruiters typically that are driving their own desks. And if you can afford and offer that type of environment, they'll thrive. Now there is a change in skill in managing, because you don't want to become a micromanager. You don't want to start checking absolutely everything. But what I found works is regular one-to-one, regular contact. How are you getting on? What are we looking at? Can I have an update? But, you know, in a more of a conversational style. And that actually works really well, because there's a huge amount of ideas that are thrown around in that quick meeting. If anybody needs help, it tends to come out in that call. But it's become part of our culture. So they're nearly like brainstorming sessions, and that happens a couple of times a week. And there's no need to start going in and spot checking work. Like, that hasn't happened to us yet. You know, and you need to be prepared that might happen if you're in a remote environment. So it's not a one size fits all.
No, but what's clear, I think, both in, you know, and in your case, to just highlight this, Sarah, you've both made decisions around it. So actually, from a point of view of talent attraction, you can go to market with exactly how you're moving forward, which is key about, you know, particularly for our guests here, is how, you know, what is the choice, and actually what choice are they going to make, which is obviously the key decision. Well, let's quickly look at L&D then, because I mean, that's been mentioned a number of times, but learning and development is without question overlooked in many businesses, and businesses that do put this as a key offer will always attract more options. But how do you market what you do already, and you know, how do you share those plans with the market? So it's not just about, I guess, as a CEO or a founder of the business, but who in your team has seen the benefit, and can that be marketed to attract future talent, which I'm sure Danielle has used a number of times over and may share. But do you have a career path mapped out also for these individuals, a future organizational structure or a vision you can share with future hires? And how do they see themselves fitting into that future growth of your business? So I guess, how you share this vision and underpin it with both internal or external training will add huge weight to your ability to attract talent. And there's lots and lots of online training platforms now that have come a long way, and third-party support effectively that negates the need for you to be an expert internally, but have become more powerful in recent years to enable you as founders to access external skills training that actually is online-based or app-driven, can be utilized with recruiters that are going home if they're going into the office, or obviously at home. But options on the market or time spent devising these paths internally are critical to give you a foothold in ensuring future talent wants to work in your business. Sarah, anything to add there? Because I know you're very hot on L&D at 360. How have you fitted this into your hiring?
Yeah, we actually tailor all of ours. So we have a set fundamentals. So there's a standard that we like people to recruit to, and we make that very clear. That there's kind of a start to end of a process, and no matter what level of experience you are, we want that quality. But in terms of in learning and development, we do tailor it because. And then it goes back to sometimes sitting beside somebody and seeing gaps and skills gaps actually helps put a training program together. But all of ours has been done online. Like we've worked with some of the guys in RE to help get training, especially around topical things like counter offers. So we've sought external training, and as a team, CEOs as well included. And sometimes those refreshers, having an external, unbiased person coming into your business can be hugely beneficial, which we found great. But then there's the tailored learning and development for each consultant. And I actually, when we do monthly one-to-ones, I ask the consultants, where are your skills gaps? What do you feel you need to work on? What do you feel your strengths are? And it comes from those conversations rather than I'm trying to tell somebody what they need. I'm always led by the person. And thankfully so far I've been able to do it, but I'm, yet to meet a time where I can't help somebody. But if I can't, we'll get external training. But I think having that conversation at least once a month, like it's part of our one-to-one format, is where do you feel you need development this month? What do you want going forward? Like it's ingrained in our culture. And It's also really attractive when we're hiring people and we tell them this is what we do. You can see people get a bit like, oh, okay, brilliant. Yeah, I actually haven't done that, or I haven't been trained in so long. I'm still asking the same 10 questions,
Yeah.
And people are really, really attracted to feeling they're going to develop and become better at what they do. Yeah.
It's key, isn't it? I mean, we talked about, you live and breathe, obviously, what you believe in there, and actually it comes to life. And actually not to even an interview process. If they're introduced to others in your team, they'll obviously see that as well, which is also a key to getting people over the line. Good. Okay. Let's move on to, look, I guess the last point here in the next slide is about, taking action on these. So, the reality and the takeaways are, ensure you spend time pulling these factors together, a vision document, an onboarding plan, L&D support. All these examples are critical that we've walked through. Most employees will know if this is something you just say rather than live and breathe, and whether that's before they join you or not too long after they've joined, it's critical that it's actually something that really does happen in the organization. Time needs to be put in by founders, the CEOs and the staff on continuous market mapping, networking with your future talent rather than just trying to engage with it when actually you need them is critical. So I guess the point there is avoiding the stop-start hiring mentality, which many have, will give you an advantage over a greater talent pool when you do come to need to hire. So time spent every week, whether an hour or more networking, meeting potential future talent in your competition, the networks and elsewhere, will without question give you more options when the needs arise. So look, that's our overview. Let's hand over to you, Andy, and let's share your story for insight for everyone on how you've tackled talent attraction through Hanami.
Yeah, I mean, I think just while I was just thinking about this webinar yesterday, it dawned on me that I think the stage in which your business is at can dictate how you hire. And what I mean by that is I realized that at the start, And when I say at the start, even we won the investment in 2014, and just by telling friends and bragging about it on Facebook, I'd managed to scale from 2 to 3 before we even launched. And I found it easy, relatively easy, to hire experienced talent at the start after we'd launched, because, even though we were young and vulnerable and quite frankly hadn't made many fees, it was an exciting proposition. So any joiner had a chance to be a founding member, impact on the growth and the running of the company. They could bring their ideas. It was their company as well. And that really attracted people, because recruiters can switch firms in the same market for a similar desk relatively easy, but it's not often you can be part of a business from its inception. So that was just, it's important to remember, if you are starting, then sell that startup. Don't dwell on the fact that you might not have many clients or you might not have many case studies. Sell the exciting elements of that that time of your business, or that time in your business. Now, fast forward a couple of years, we were more established, so we were more successful. We had a bigger brand, we had a bigger network, but sadly that startup opportunity wasn't there. So we then had to sort of switch our sell to, we've made loads of placements overseas, so you can go on international visits. So it's just important to remember that. I think in terms of hiring, and by the way, I don't practice what I preach. I'm always kicking myself every month that I haven't done enough. But something James Caan used to always drill into me is like, always be hiring, even when you're not hiring. Like, always be talking to people. Always have substitutes on the bench. Don't event hire. Don't wait for someone to leave or fall pregnant or move country and then run out and try and find someone. So sort of operationally, look, I've got a really big PRC whip with hundreds of names of people I've approached over the years and what their response was and when I should get back to them. We've got 4 managers stroke senior managers in the business now. So, it's on them to also deliver what they've done every month. We should, if we're going to talk about hiring, we should talk about RectorX briefly. I'm not against RectorX at all. I've used them, and by and large, it was a pleasant experience. But my biggest issue with RectorX is certainly not the fee. It's having to move ultra fast, and certainly not at a pace that I like to. Like, if you get a good CV on a Monday morning from a RectorX, you should be prepared to move from interview to offer within 3 or 4 days. Otherwise, you've lost out. Don't even bother with the first interview. And if you sort of aren't prepared, I certainly wouldn't bother. I think with the courtship, it's longer, but it's at a pace that tends to suit both parties, and you also have less sort of external competition. And then finally, I just keep pushing the referral program internally. I think one of the best routes of success we've had is by referrals. And quite a recent example, one of my colleagues referred a tax recruiter, and I sort of mentioned this earlier on the reference stage, but he had a relatively jumpy CV, 3 jobs in 5 years, max billings 150. He was a great guy, but it was all a bit, and it was only the strength of the referral that made me meet him in the first place. But actually, what the referral did, the consultant who was with me had already sold Hanami to that recruiter. So I didn't have to do any selling at all. I could then focus on, and obviously I'm at the advantage of the fact that he was immediately available and quite frankly had a jumpy CV. So the power was more in my hands, but I was able to drill him and focus more on the hard work required to be a success. And I'm going to be all over you, and it's all about activity and blah, blah, blah. Then I got the references, amazing references, hired him. Now he started on February the 8th and he's written 79 grand in 2 to 3 months, 25 grand of that has already been invoiced. The lad's on 31k base. He's going to do it. If he carries this on, he's on a 250 run rate. And I genuinely, I probably wouldn't have even interviewed him if it wasn't for the referral. If that CV had landed in my inbox, it would have just been there. So, and it cost me £1,000, which is the bounty for the recruiter. So that's a relevant and recent story.
Great source.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andy. Sarah, let's hear from yourself.
Yeah, so we don't have an internal referral scheme implemented yet, but I'm definitely putting one in place after hearing that. I think for us, a huge part of when we try to attract talent, because we're in such a competitive market, and with Ireland, there's two types of recruiters. There's account managers and there's those that like to hunt. And because of the stage that our business is at, we want to attract those that like to hunt. However, they're so far and few between. So what we try and do in our hiring process is actually tailor our role. So we might have a brief, let's say, a particular area like technology, that we say, okay, we want to have a presence in this space because we've analyzed our client base and we know that we can probably pick up, 3 or 4 clients that will know us. So we try to create, and I guess maybe having the support of RE actually allows us to do this, because we're not necessarily having to go, oh my God, can we afford this? If it makes sense, then we put a business case forward for it. But I think one strategy that we use is if we meet somebody and we say, okay, they're an excellent account manager, then I might change what I'm doing and I might then try and develop the market so I have roles to feed to them, and we can try and create it that way. So sometimes actually tailoring an offering, and I think you can do that when you're small and you're flexible, maybe more so than you can when you're a larger company. So there's some benefits to being small, but then what we find we have to do is create a huge online presence and, putting out content that is of quality, but trying to do things different, not necessarily the same article, how to write a good CV, albeit useful, maybe looking at doing something different, maybe putting out, a role play or an interview or something that's saying, something that's engaging, trying to do things a little differently, and building a focus where when you're approaching recruiters or you're approaching people that you want to engage with, they actually recognize the brand, or they go, oh, I've heard of you guys, or, I know you guys. And I think because especially the last 12 months, everything is online, whereas we're very strong at face-to-face networking. We go to absolutely everything in Dublin, anything we can. And that's hugely successful for us. And people just recognize the brand more so. They might not know huge amounts about us, but because we're so loud online, they say, oh yeah, maybe I'll have a conversation. I'm interested to learn about what you do. So kind of making a bit of noise about your business has definitely worked for us. But I guess mistakes that we've made, we've made a few mistakes. I think the largest headcount we got to is 7, and we're at 4 right now with a view to becoming 5. So it feels like for us, that we've managed to grow and then we've contracted again. And, we haven't necessarily understood the skills of the person properly. When we get into the role, we have an expectation and the delivery has not necessarily been there. So we have to take ownership of that as well, as much as you can train somebody. But one thing I will say is make a decision on it early, because as a small business, if you hold on to somebody and they're not necessarily generating revenue, if you've hired them to generate revenue, you have to make a decision on that. And that's definitely one thing we've learned from our mistakes, is make a decision early, but be very clear and very, respectful with the person in your decision, and very clear as to why it's not working.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Sarah. That's some really honest insights and great tips there. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Right, next up is marketing. Our very own Danielle on some views of how you can tackle talent attraction without necessarily having the need for a full marketing function. So hopefully some top tips. Danielle, over to you.
Thank you, Alex. So I would say from a marketing perspective, the number one thing that you want to do is tell a story. So engage your audience, think about who it is that will be reading your content or looking at your website, watching your videos, reading your job descriptions. Tell them why you started your business, what makes you different from your competitors, what will this new person be doing, how will they shape the future of your business. There's a really good video on YouTube called Start With Why by one of my favorite marketers, Simon Sinek, and that will give you a kind of framework on how you can communicate all of these messages about your business. But it really does go back to your EVP, talk about why you're growing, and show this person where they'll fit in and what impact they can have on the future. And then thinking about things like when you're writing your job descriptions, again, I would talk directly to that candidate. Avoid corporate jargon, anything that will alienate people, gender bias. Give them a really clear picture of what your company is like, what your culture's like, your existing team. Explain to them where they fit in. I think we see a lot of job descriptions today that is just a list of bullet points of responsibilities. So if you just kind of flip that around and communicate it in a slightly different way, instead of kind of giving a whole bullet point list, say, you know, we're looking for somebody that can build a desk with us, is going to impact the future success of our company. It just draws people in a lot more. And then also ask questions. So are you the right person for this? Can you do this? And then while people are reading it subliminally, they're already answering those questions. So it's kind of like you're already starting a conversation with them. Just flips things around slightly in a psychological sense. I would also say, I mean, as Andy touched on, we're all recruiters, but we're possibly not the best at recruiting ourselves. So I would go back to your process, make sure that everybody that has applied or had any kind of contact with your company has a positive image of you. You know, they'll be your biggest cheerleaders. They'll be the ones talking about you within the network. So even if they're not successful for an interview or they're not quite right at that time, send them a little email, thank them for applying. Just keep everything really positive. Keep your branding out there. And then finally, I would say social media is a big one for us. So whether you've got a marketing team or a budget or not, everybody can do things that will have an impact on social media. So what we find really helpful for us is creating video content, which, you know, there's a lot of online tools that you can use and you can do yourself, which won't break the bank. We like to animate some of the text and things on our posts, and then link them back to our websites and our job boards. And then when we track our SEO on our website, we can see that this all has an impact. So you're just really putting your brand out there to people. Also think about your audience and what platforms you're going to use. If you're recruiting graduates, you probably want to be on Instagram in the evening. If you're looking for somebody with a bit more corporate experience, then you definitely want to be on LinkedIn. And then equally, Facebook is also another really good area. So one of the companies within our portfolio in construction recruit guys that literally build steel rigs. And there's lots of groups on Facebook where we can target their candidates. So really think about your target audience, where they are, what their online habits are, and how you can fit into that. And then, like I mentioned, video content is something that will really, really kind of boost the engagement. So I think the last stat that I saw was a video will get 300% more engagement than a static post, which is just phenomenal. So I'll show you an example of Hanami where we talk about kind of what it's like to work there, how their staff develop, what's in it for the candidates that join them. But equally, when we send the deck out later on, I'll include some more links from kind of ones that have just been done over Zoom or just been done on an iPhone. You really don't need to have a lot of budget. I think just be genuine, get your message out there and really show people what your business is all about. So let's have a little look at Hanami's video.
We're 4 years old. We've made 4 million quid in that time as well. We've placed into 35 countries, 73 cities and 35 countries.
I joined as a consultant in July 2016. I was promoted through to senior consultant at the start of 2018 and have a really clear and structured path through to business management and then later directorship down the road.
I've been working at Hanami for a year and a half now. So my favourite things about working at Hanami are obviously the international travel. Not a lot of jobs will let you travel that much. Second thing are the people. We're all just very close. We're close friends. We're like a small family. They're my second family, being away from my family. Another thing is the nights out. We have really fun social events as well. And the fact that we get to talk to people, work with people from all over the world, different cultures.
We work with people from all different parts of the world. You could spend your morning recruiting for a position in Hong Kong, you could spend your evening recruiting for a position in America. You have to be really open to adapting your style to different cultures. What might work really well in one country won't work well at all in another. So you have to be able to adapt accordingly and to make sure you're reflecting the market that you're working at the time.
Obviously you have to work hard everywhere you go, but I think here, because it is such a small company, you really do see the difference your input makes to the business as a whole and how that business grows. With us being a small team, everyone's individual contribution does help the business grow. And I think that's one of the biggest selling points. You have that autonomy around the whole of your work environment. You really do run your own business. And working alongside the guys, you know, Andy and Matt, they are partners and directors of the business, but at the same time, they are like your best friends in a way. You know, there's banter around the desk. It's just a very much enjoyable environment to work in.
And I think we've got the perfect balance of culture, of success, of hard work, of fun. And I think all these things are why people would come and join.
The culture's been created by the people in the business, and it's a winning culture. You know, we thrive on success, but it's fun, and the people in our business, they take pride in Hanami. And again, I didn't build that, I didn't tell them to do that, they did it themselves. So it's what I'm most proud of, but it's also what's most precious as well.
Well, Matt and Andy, I wouldn't like to work for any other two guys in business.
And yeah, Hanami, Andy and Matt are just amazing, and I couldn't have asked for a better first job after finishing university.
Very good.
So David Brent, I didn't
It
realise
is,
how
yeah. I
bad
like
that
the
was.
music, Andy. Very nice music choice.
You know what? I haven't actually watched that video in its entirety. I was so embarrassed when it was produced. I just said, don't tag me in.
It's great, but just Andy, while we're on that, because it didn't take a marketing department to pull that together. Just very briefly, how did you pull that together for the audience?
Yeah, I mean, it was just. I'm sure everybody's got a friend who works in social media. You know, it was actually someone in another RE company. Her boyfriend did this relatively cheap, relatively easily. RE then edited it and made it look good, you know. And yeah, I'm still so embarrassed about that. Is that still out on the internet? Is that still like Googleable, if that's a real word?
That is a real word, yeah. You can spell that.
Can we have a new one? Danielle, can we have a new one, please?
Of course you can.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think the point on that is that it's very different, isn't it? You don't often see that. It's a real insight, a real view to the business, and actually people will migrate to that on how it's shared. So a good tip to have. Great, thanks for sharing that, Danielle. Anything further from yourself?
No, I think that's it for me. So, I mean, again, just get your personality out there. Even if you do feel it's a little bit cringe, this is what people want to see. They want to get insight into a day in the life in your business. So get yourselves out there. Superb.
Thank you. All right. Well, let's close off then, I guess, on some final points here. I mean, firstly, from, what do we do that's different? I mean, we are a pure recruitment investor. Our prime focus is backing recruitment businesses with capital and supporting them then to scale. And that's through a dedicated infrastructure. So, the reality is we have that infrastructure, the luxury of teams within marketing, and a dedicated in-house talent support that supports the CEOs in key hires and growth, which is obviously part of the equation here. We ultimately also, with this infrastructure that exists, enable, ultimately this faster growth. So I guess, there's a question posed here about how has that made a difference? Andy and Sarah, it'd be good to get a sort of a very brief response on, what advantages have you seen about in this environment, I should say, in terms of scaling your businesses?
I think there's a number of advantages to me or to Hanami of being with RE. Yeah, and I'm not going to talk about them because that's something you can talk about. But you need to think about what's the advantage to your hire, And I think there's a couple. We are a small company, but when I've interviewed people or when people have joined my business or walked in the door for an interview, they can see an entire floor full of other recruitment businesses. And many of my staff members have become friends with those other recruiters from other businesses. So you don't exactly need to have the right demographic or hire the right people to be friends. There's an age gap of many people in our business, but so having other companies in RE for them to socialize with, I think from a career perspective, I think it offers the best of both worlds. So some people do want a small lifestyle type business, and no company that joins RE is a lifestyle business or wants to be a lifestyle business, but there's still positives of being small in the sense that, you know, you can shape the company. Your 200 grand billings is a good 10% of the turnover of your company. You've got a voice, you know, all of those things, and people want that. And, you know, freedom, no KPIs, blah, blah, blah. But then you're also going to hire some people who want to be part of a more ambitious company. And I think being part of RE, we can't just sit back and chill out and do a couple of £1 million a year. There's bigger growth plans than that. So even though you might be part of a £2 million business with Hanami, Hanami's part of a 100 or 80 million turnover, you know, fastest growing recruitment brand in Europe type of business. And you will hire some young guns or old guns who want that instead. So the way I'm not saying it very well, but it's the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Is the best.
So the biggest small company you can be.
Yeah, it's a company that's going somewhere. Like, you're not just, when you work for a small company, you're often just working really hard to have a nice life and to make one guy or girl rich, you know? But when you're doing it here, you're helping scale a company that's going to go through a big transaction at some point. That's really exciting for a lot of my team. And also, I've got team members who couldn't care less about that. They'd be quite happy just us staying as 10 or 12 people. But they're still happy because they've got the small company feel as well.
Yeah.
So I just think it enables you to attract more a range of people who want different things.
Great, thank you, Annie. Sarah?
Yeah, I guess it's definitely created interest for us. So, you know, people are curious to see what it might mean for them. And, you know, probably similar to what Andy's saying is, we actually have a story. You know, we can offer somebody an opportunity, and like that's why we sort of tailor the opportunities for people when they come into the business, because we have the backing, we have the support, and we have the guidance, and they know that when they join us, we're all reaching a common goal, and that's for everybody to be successful. And we tend to attract like-minded people, and they tend to want similar goals to us, you know, but in different formats. So it's brought us to a different level, you know, of conversation of what the long-term goal looks like and the medium-term goal looks like, and what an opportunity can be for somebody else. That's kind of one of the advantages that we've seen. It was an immediate advantage as well. Great,
thanks, Sarah. Good stuff. Right, okay. Well, look, I think, you know, from a point of view of the presentation, we've got some time for some questions. So let's go to the guests. Anybody in the audience, has anyone got a spark question they'd like to ask? Any of the panel today? Don't be shy. Yeah, no, not yet. Okay, well, we've had some just a quick two. We've got well, we've actually had do referral programs within your business work. I think, Andy, you've obviously certainly helped with that. I think you didn't quite clarify what that looks like. Is it monetized or is it development? How have you put that together?
Yeah, it's quite simply, it's £1,000. We give them £250 on the day the person starts and £750 when they pass their probation. And that last bit was more just to encourage them to work out, you know. The only other thing I would say on referrals as well, I think it's better for your staff member to reach out to a competitor at the same level than it is for me. You know, I'm always going to be passionate about this company, you know, but if one of my colleagues is saying, you know, come and join Hanami, I've only been here 3 months and I've written 80K and I'm looking to grow a tax colleague alongside me, I think just that's more powerful. You know, I'm always going to say good things about Hanami, but I just think it's more powerful coming from your staff member, and that's not being lazy, you know, that's just sadly being lazy, but it works, you know.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. We've got another one here, unless there's any guests want to ask. Not yet. Well, we'll keep reading. There's one more question emailed in. As a small company of 3 looking to scale, who should be involved in the decision making? Everyone or just me? I guess that's a founder asking there, and do their staff have a say in it? Any thoughts on that from the panel?
Yeah, well,
Everyone.
sorry, I realise I'm taking over.
Go for it, Andy.
Which is your mistake of inviting me on something like this.
I knew it was coming.
I know I'm not going to get invited again, am I? I've made mistakes and successes from this. At the very, very start, I think it's critical everyone's involved, because you are really small, you're really cohesive. And if you're, what did the person say? They've got three. They've got three. So another one is 25% of your business, if you like, you know, and if that person's going to rub up the other two or the other three the wrong way, then, you know, it's horrible. However, and we did that at the start, and it worked. The other reason why I think it works is some people are going to meet me and probably not warm to me, but they might warm to a couple of my colleagues who are involved in the interview process. So they might think I'm a bit of an idiot, but they really like Matt, or they really like Brad, or they really like Adam, and therefore that seals the deal. So remember that you're not going to be liked by everyone. Secondly, or the word of warning is, we carried that on for years, and that was a bad move. You know, I've had to say no to someone or a few people that I've really, really liked, but we've had the group consensus, and the company was then 8 strong. And there's always going to be someone who doesn't like that recruiter, or that potential recruiter. They might even feel threatened by that potential recruiter, you know, and then you have a real dilemma then. Do you ignore your current staff member and go against their wishes and potentially annoy them to hire the person you want? You know, it's a real horrible thing. And I genuinely have had to say no to people I knew were good because, you know, one of my consultants didn't like them. So I would say to answer the question at the start, definitely. Later on, no. You know, just get two people involved, or just follow your instinct, trust your instinct.
Great stuff, Andy. Thank you. Right. Well, unless there's any final questions, I think we're pretty much on time here, finishing. I guess.
Sorry, I'd just like to
James, go ahead.
In there. I'm interested to know about what kind of recruitment process the guys recommend. You know, is it just a case of 2 interviews and an offer, or, you know, you're taking these people out for a drink, or, you know, what have you found successful?
Varies. We've actually taken somebody out for a drink. That probably links back to when we were over familiar with people during a hiring process, and the kind of the quality of questioning and decision making potentially got a bit skewed because we got a bit over familiar during a process. I think going out for a drink when the person is a done deal to meet the team is a lovely way to integrate somebody into a team. But I think, you know, first stage is the person that's managing the process. Second stage is the second decision maker when it's, you know, one-on-one. And then we would always have a third stage where we would actually meet again and actually go through what's really expected, make it very, very clear about what it looks like, about what their role is, about what the expectation is. And then it moves more to a social, where we would have a couple of the guys on the team maybe meet them to say, look, you know, this is what it's really like to work for them, just as a wink, wink. But I think, you know, being a very small business, as Andy said, it's important to get the buy-in when you are small, but then as you grow, it's probably down to the individual team, you know, the manager on the team and potentially one of the owners. But we rarely hire without 3 meetings. And 2 individual meetings and then a gathering. If you're one person, you know, having a second opinion is exactly what you need. You know, even just to bounce ideas off somebody. You know, if you are a partner in a business and you've got a second opinion, but if you're one person and one person only, you know, it becomes a little bit harder. You really have to trust your instinct. But I would still recommend 2-3 meetings plus really detailed referencing.
Thanks, Sarah. I think the key there, James, I don't know if that's something you're doing already, but the key there is obviously getting the sell, i.e. the buy-in from whatever the candidate is, but speed is the key, particularly in, you know, the fact that there's going to be lots of options in the market. So lots of number of processes you might choose, getting through them quickly is critical. Yeah.
You can't do them in a week. You know, if you are moving and you're very sure and you're very clear and defined, you can move at speed. If there's an ambiguity around the skills or where they'll slot into the business, you can't rush it. It depends on your criteria and kind of where you're at in a process. But I think 1 meeting is to, you know, you're still getting to know each other. 2 meetings second meeting you can uncover stuff. A minimum of 2, minimum.
Yeah, the wrong hire can be expensive.
Yeah, especially in a small business.
Indeed. Anything further? No, I think that wraps it up. James, thanks for your question. Really appreciate your input there. Right, well, thank you everyone for attending, and we're going to send out the presentation soon after today. I'm sure it'll be with you even this afternoon, stroke early tomorrow. On it will be contact details if anyone wants to raise any further questions or looking more into what we do here at Recruitment Entrepreneur. Thank you for all for attending. Leaves me with thanking all our panel, Sarah, Andy, Danielle. Thank you so much for giving up the time today.
Thanks. See you.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye all.
Bye.